be only one correct answer. Now, in the wrong options. So before we start, let me just say a very short prayer. Father Lord, we welcome you to be in our midst. Come and bless us. Come in our knowledge, also in our business. So for those investors who are listening in, Lord, I also ask that you will bless them in everything they touch that will be profitable. So I pray all this in Jesus' name. Amen. So let's start going. It's a very quiet afternoon, so we will just go on with the show. Now, first question, the market risk of real estate investments stems from the fact that the demand is unpredictable. So let me just call out the poll question. Right. In the interest of time, I will just show you the answer. It is true. It is true. Because now the reason why there are agents, there are agencies, is because none of the seller will know when the demand will come. So let me explain further. Now, demand refers to price offer. There is no other definition for demand as far as the brokers are concerned. Okay, as far as the sellers are concerned, the brokers are concerned. Now, of course, as far as the academics are concerned, that means people who are teaching, of course, demand can be many other more general concept. But for people like us, demand is very specific to the price offer. Meaning, okay, if you market something, then nobody come in to say that, can I give you an offer? I want to buy this at a certain price. Now, then there's no demand for it. If nobody comes and say this, there's no demand for it. Now, there could be many people visiting the showrooms or at the weekends, open houses, means in the resale arena. But if nobody gives a price offer, there's no demand for the listing. So this is what I'm trying to say. Come, let's go to the second question. Let me read to you. The supply side measures are as effective as the demand side measures. Oh, this one is referring to the cooling measures. When it comes to the cooling of speculative fervor in the real estate market. So now, for those who are listening in on Facebook Live, you can send in the answer through the text. And let's give you a bit of time. Okay, so let me now show you the answer. It's false. Let me explain the answer. Now, there are two types of measures, cooling measures. One is called the supply side. One is called the demand side. So if you have taken part in my CPD course on what to expect from the real estate market in the post-COVID-19 era, I have one slide there to explain which of the supply side measures have been lifted by the MAS, Monetary Authority of Singapore. Now, so what does it mean? The supply side measures include increasing land supplies, imposing restrictions on the supplier, meaning the developers, and in effect, what is that? Now, that will be your qualifying certification process. That will be your ABSD, the 5%. Now, so what have been lifted is the restriction on public listed developers who are 100% Singaporean held by Singaporeans, or I think vast majority, once you can prove that the decision-making process is by Singaporean, they can waive that for you. So what is the implication for that? The implication for that will be there will be no late charge. There will only be prorated ABSD. So there will be no late charge if you can't sell within 5 years. So that kind of like relieve some of the developers' pressure, because in the past is that if you can't sell within 5 years, then there will be a late charge of 8%, 16%, 20%. That means 8% for the first year that you can't sell, 16% for those that you can't sell in the second year, third year, 24%. Then, of course, if you continue to hold on to 4th, 5th, 6th, then it's all 24%. Now, that can kill the developers. So that part has been lifted for Singaporean companies, development companies. So on the other hand, the demand side measures are usually to curb the speculative buying directly by taxing the purchasers or purchasers and making it expensive in the time of bull run. Third question, property purchasers who do not take up a mortgage from the bank usually do not lodge caveats as a result. This is a very practical question. I give you some time to decide. So again, those who are watching on Facebook Live, you can text in your answers. So far, nobody text in the answer, but it's okay, no problem. All right, let me give you the answer now. It's true. It's true. This is a practical question. I just want to show those who are still studying RES that basically only the banks will lodge caveat. So if you don't use any mortgagee, then there will be no caveat lodge. Most of the time. Of course, I did see when I do title search, I did see my customers whose name is inside the caveat. Now, usually when a mortgagee is involved, then the mortgagee will lodge caveat to protect his equitable mortgage, meaning the money that the bank loan to somebody, which is a buyer, who is still not the legal owner, who is only the equitable owner. So now for those who are taking REX exam, you may find that, oh, this question is very practical kind of questions. But you see the way I explain it, it will then lead you back to everything that you study about equity, equitable mortgage, equitable ownership, title registration, legal completion, proprietary interest. It all go back to the central concept of ownership. Now, however, when there is no mortgagee involved in the purchase, the buyer's lawyer usually will not lodge the caveat, as most of the convincing lawyer charge a flat legal fee. So I think the component is, come to about slightly below $100. So I don't think if they do, say for example, if they do 100 conveyancing a month, they are not going to come up with that kind of money to help their customers to lodge. Question 4, when an old apartment projects are sold collectively, the subsequent redevelopment invariably attracts the development charge. True or false? Okay, so the last question, somebody put in the answer, one right, one wrong, but you by now should have heard the explanation already. So let's try question 4. Invariably means, well, always, won't change, sure one. Okay, let me give you the answer. All right, so somebody from Facebook Live say is true. Let me show you the answer. Unfortunately for you, is false. It's false. Now, let me explain. Now, development charge is payable only when the value of the new development, which in the formula is called development ceiling, only when the new development, the floor area add together, we call it value. So the development ceiling is higher than the value of the existing development, called development baseline. So in fact, last week, I just finished one course on how to calculate the profitability of old apartments with en bloc sale potential. And wow, a lot of questions came in. How to get how to know the existing development, how much of the floor area they have used up and all that. The answer is buy the baseline report from URA, but that's not our business because you may buy, but after you cannot, you do not know how to interpret. There's also no use. So usually we'll leave it to the architect, whoever architect that has been engaged by the collective sale committee. So now development baseline. Let's say a development. Let's say there's a condo, old condo. The development baseline is a 4-story and a very old project. Now, so the approved development for the new project is 20th story. So now you have 16-story difference, right? So now the difference will attract the development charge. Because why? The development ceiling, that means the value of the new development is 20-story. And then the existing development called the development baseline is only 4-story. So the difference is 16-story of airspace. So for that, you will have to pay quite a hefty sum of development charge. Question 5. The mortgagee becomes the legal owner of the property being mortgaged. Now, before you answer the question, I would like to explain who is the mortgagee. So now the mortgagee is the bank. Is the bank. So this is a very tricky question. Let's vote. Let me see. Today, those people taking part in Facebook are more active. Okay, my good friend Mark Chi is also there. Hello, Mark. All right, so now let me review the answer to you. Okay, somebody say false. Somebody say false. Correct. False is the answer. Let me explain. Now, because you have to look at the historical context. Now, the modern day mortgages are secured by a charge. A charge means you create the right for the capital lenders to make demand for you to pay them back. So capital lenders, number one, the bank is called a mortgagee. Now you may borrow against your own retirement funds to buy the property. So that in Singapore is called CPF. CPF. So you may borrow against your own CPF savings to buy. So the CPF board, right, the custodian of your retirement fund, now becomes the capital lender. So they also will ask you to create a charge in their favor. So they are the second charge. Now in history, in the pre-1925 era, mortgagees became landowner and borrowers must redeem the loan over a very long period of time. Now, yesterday I just watched this Enola Sherlock. Then this movie is about the reform bill. Now, I believe it is this particular timeline, this particular point in history where they start to reform quite a lot of things. Now, so one of the legal reforms is that mortgage is no longer this way. Meaning after the legal reform, all the modern day mortgages are by way of a charge. So once the mortgagor, that is the house owner, were unable to fulfill the repayment in the past, then the mortgage will be foreclosed. Foreclosed means what? Foreclosed means that now you cannot redeem. Now the bank becomes the owner. So that was considered oppressive. So that's why this whole thing has been reformed. So today's mortgage, you can anytime redeem. You just pay a little bit of penalty. You can also assign to another bank. So that's called refinancing. So it's more liberal this way, and people get rich this way. In the past, the landlords, the landowner class, they they think that that will deprive them of their eternal richness lah. Okay, so okay, now there's a bit of history that I think is important for agents to know lah. I mean, just as a background knowledge. Question number 6. Beng bought a semi-detached house which has a story height limit of 3 stories. He built a house of 3.5 stories with an attic and also a basement. In all, if you walk into the house, there are 5 floor levels within the house. It is perfectly lawful. Let's vote. Let's see how the Facebook people vote. This is a practical question. This is a practical question. Okay, let me review the answer to you. It is true. Now, it's a tricky question again, because the earlier statement says story height limit, but the later statement say floor levels. So you must know floor levels and story height limit are 2 different things. You can have one story with different floor. Let me explain. Number 1, a basement is not considered a floor level. So there's still 3.5 already. And usually an attic will take up only half the floor area of the 3rd floor. So therefore, it's considered an attic is not a floor. So it's again a little bit practical in this question. A basement is not a floor, an attic is not a floor, and the attic, there's a certain requirement on the degree of slant of the roof. So if you don't take advantage of the slanting of the roof to create space in your attic, then some of them just basically just build a stair up to the top level, and then they just cover up a little bit of the roof area that make it an attic. So such an attic floor is also not considered a floor level. All right, so now let's move. Now, for those who just joined us on Zoom, my apology that today there is no poll. So I just read the questions to you, then you just practice on your own. But I will still explain the answer. Now, question 7, Beng and Hui are an unmarried couple. She has moved in to live with Beng 6 months ago, rent-free. She has acquired an equitable interest over Beng's property. Now, next week onwards, we will begin 1 whole month dealing with legal tenancies and leases. So this is a foretaste because it talks about rent-free. So now pick your answer. Those on Facebook are very active today, so they are keying in the answer. Thank you very much. So that makes a bit more fun. Now let me show you the answer. It's false. Why is it false? Let me explain. Okay, all those on Facebook got it right. Now, between unrelated individuals, an interest in land is not acquired through physical occupation of the premises. Why? Because that could be a license. That could be a license. There must be a contract, either orally or in writing, for the interest to be transferred. Now, that kind of interest can only be an equitable interest and not a legal interest, because for a legal interest to arise out of such arrangement, you must have a registration. So the contract basically binds them. Then there must be some money involved. But of course, it can be a tenancy at will. So, like I say, this is a foretaste for next week's topic, next month's topic on tenancy and leases. So they are not standalone one. Even leases, tenancy, you have contract, and then you have land law concepts all wrapped into one big ball of concept. Now, so if the couple is married, then it's a different thing. If the couple is married, then Ah Hui would have been considered an equitable owner straight away through the marriage. So that's why I always disturb the girls in my class. I say, girls, if you married your husband for his money and for his real estate, you have made it. Okay. Now, so you see, a wife, right, a spouse, a legal spouse, even though he or she does not contribute financially to the marital, to the maintenance and the purchase of the marital property. Now equity, that means the law of justice and fairness would have given them some share of the property. Now, some share of the property means that when they divorce, so when they are still husband and wife, there's no share. Because why? The two are considered one. Ah Hui, okay, question 8, last question. Ah Hui gave cash to Ah Beng to service the monthly mortgage repayment, but her name was not in the title. So as a result, she has no interest whatsoever in the man's property. Now, before you answer the question, Ah Hui and Ah Beng remain unmarried. It's just that they're girl boyfriend. So then Ah Hui moved in, and she never pay rent. But then she say, now take this money, pay the bank. So and also her name is not in the title. So now there's no mention of tenancy. So now the statement, she has no interest whatsoever in the man's property. I need you to think in terms of land law. Okay, make your choice. So sorry for those on Zoom. There's no poll here, but you can make your choice mentally. And let me now just give you the, okay, somebody say false. On Facebook, somebody say false. Okay, now let me, okay, false. Okay, whoever you are, very good. Very good. You have been correct consistently. Let me explain the answer. Anyone who contributes financially to the acquisition of a real estate acquires for themselves a beneficial interest, which is proprietary in nature. Now, for those practicing agent, they will know, because they have to put up the checklist for money laundering, so compulsory. So they will have to give the Annex A, which is a form, to whoever buyer to fill up the Annex A. Now, what is the last question in your Annex A? The last question in your Annex A is, are you the beneficial owner? Are you the beneficial owner? Yes or no? So now, say for example, somebody give you some money to buy, and then you come up with half the money to buy. So the question now asks you, are you the beneficial owner? Then you say yes. Now, if you want to qualify the yes, then you say, but there's a certain portion of the share goes to my girlfriend. My girlfriend also come up with, let's say, some money. So now Ah Hui is the girlfriend. Ah Hui is also the beneficial owner. So now, in the event that the relationship turns sour and Ah Beng sold the house and then don't want to give Ah Hui back the money, then Ah Hui will seek court's declaration of a resulting trust, where she is the beneficiary, one of the beneficiaries. So in other words, if I give somebody some money to buy a house and my name is not in the title, I still own the beneficial interest, right? Is a equitable interest. So I need all of you to actually have a very clear understanding of land rights, of who has the right, who doesn't have the right, and all that. So when you do a title search, you look at the legal ownership. Actually, is sufficient for your job. But once your customer comes up with this kind of query, you must be able to handle. All right, now we have actually completed our true or false. You can visit my website. I believe it's all up there already. It's called REX exam preparation. REX exam preparation, and then you go into that subdomain. You will have 11 videos and 30 questions for you to practice. That's actually quite a lot. And of course, after that, I will really hope that you will buy the revision package, the revision e-revision bundle, where you will listen to my 10 lessons, which I recorded before the pandemic. So next year, I will record paper 2 already. And along the way, I will have to do the regular updating, because now Zoom is very convenient. So now I also have more than 1,000 paper 1 MCQ for you to practice. So it's going at a very huge discount. So for those who are watching on Facebook, just tell your friends, tell your downline, ask them to come to my website to learn on the website. Okay, now we proceed to multiple choice question. What interest will a wife have in the marital home if her name is not in the title? So now we don't have the poll, so you have to pick. Let me read to you. As I read, then you can pick. A, no land interest at all, as her name is not in the title. B, regardless of the absence of her name in the title, she is a joint tenant with her husband. C, regardless of the absence of her name in the title, she is tenant in common with her husband. D, she has an equitable interest in land as the spouse. It's quite clear. I think the answer is quite clear. So now let's review. Okay, very good. Very good. I think those people on Facebook, they also got it right. Let me explain. A marriage is the most important institution in the society. It has serious consequence. Remember just now I say, girls, if you married your husband for his wealth, you have made it. Now the marital home is considered jointly owned by the married couple. Even if the wife's name is not in the title, she has acquired, right, an equitable interest in the house, which the Singapore courts recognizes. So now if you are practicing agent, then you will know that for HDB flat, when you sell HDB flat, some of the old couple, they're still very traditional. The husband works and then the wife is a homemaker, and then therefore financially only the husband contributes to the financial repayment. So what happened is that when the husband wants to sell the flat, the wife got to give consent, right? So if the wife doesn't give consent, wow, let me tell you, big problem, big problem. Joint tenancy is not created by marriage. Both names must be in the title, because why? Whether it is joint tenancy or whether it's tenancy in common, the law says that it is an opt-in process. Opt-in process. Okay, and in some other texts say that you must elect. Either joint tenancy or tenancy in common. But I think opt-in is a better explanation. I think a lot of people know what is the meaning of opt-in. Meaning, now you appear in front of your lawyer. All right, your lawyer asks you, so do you all want to hold this as a joint tenants, or do you all want to hold it by share? So then you will say, okay, joint tenants. So of course, that means that you are family. You're family. All right, so for HDB flats, the opt-in is in the resale application. Meaning, if I'm not wrong, the third item, when you click, when you apply, when you go into the HDB resale portal, then you want to, let's say you are a buyer, then you want to apply to HDB for the permission to purchase the HDB flat. So first step, I think, is your name, and second step, I cannot remember what, but I think the third step is, how do you want to jointly hold the title? So that's where joint tenancy and tenancy in common will then pop out already. So you have to pick either as a sole owner, joint tenancy, or tenancy in common. Now, C, likewise, tenancy in common is created by option. Okay, that means you got to opt in when two parties hold shares either equally or unequally. Or it can be created by law. For example, you own a condo, then the common property will be owned by way of shares. A parent-in-law lived with the married couple from the first day of their marriage rent-free. Again, rent-free. What interest in land does the parent-in-law have? Now, since we don't have the poll here, I just read to you. After I read to you, then I'll review the answer. So you make the choice mentally. A, equitable interest in land. B, a benefit of a constructive trust, which is an equitable interest. C, a license of a personal nature. D, an at-will tenancy. So you make the pick mentally. It is an at-will tenancy. At-will tenancy. Okay, somebody will say, then what about, is this a license? Now, in the Asian context and in the Singaporean context, whether you are Malay, you are Indian, you are Chinese, or you're Eurasian, all right, the four mainstream races, ethnic groups, we all live with our parents. So that's number one. Then we all will never ask our parents to pay rent. So our tenancy is out. And sometimes license, you still need to have license fee. So we are not so heartless. So usually we will say, come live with us, live with us. So when your parents actually live with you, all right, it is an at-will tenancy. I mean, especially if you give them a house to stay in. So now let me explain. There are many forms of tenancy at will or at will tenancy, either early move in, or you remain on property that's called holdover lease, or you invite your parents to live with you, or you let your parents live with one of your vacant units and all that. Now, all these without rent, without rent. Now, so what about your maid? Your maid is licensed, definitely. Your maid is not a will tenant. Your maid is a licensee. So now, if you have pick A, if they are not legal owners, only spouses acquire equitable interest. Parents don't. Parents don't. So of course, your parents-in-law become your parent-in-law through marriage, but they also don't own equitable interest. Only the daughter that you marry. A constructive trust is a court declaration. We cannot create a constructive trust. So constructive trust is when your title has gone into the wrong hand, and then you ask the court to say that, can you ask that guy to return me my title? So for example, it's very common today, if you sell your land, let's say you have a bungalow land with a rundown bungalow, and then you want to sell. So very common, there will be someone who come and say that, okay, I will help you to construct the new houses on your land. So I don't have to pay you for the land, but I'll pay for construction. So now eventually, they take the new title. They take the new title and refuse to return to the landowner. So this is cheating. So the landowner will then go to court to say that, hey, this guy cheat me because he's supposed to return one of the titles to me. So now if the court says that, yeah, you have to return one of the titles to the original landowner, So then that is called a constructive trust, meaning in the interim, while you're holding on to two titles, that is just a constructive trust. You're just a trustee. You're not the real owner. The real owner is the original owner. Okay, so this has been the example that I use in class. Okay, the parent, C, if you pick C, the parent-in-law lived there for a long period of time with permission. If it is a friend who slept over, then it's a license, or a maid, or somebody who worked for you. But as parents-in-law, they are tenant at will. So in terms of like importance, I think they are up there. Okay, they are not just any other fellas. Question 3. Two adjoining shop houses, unit A and B, shared the same stairway on A's premises. What is the right enjoyed by owner of B? So let me read to you the 4 choices. A, license. B, easement or passage. C, equitable extopper. D, air right. So which one? A, B, C, D. A, B, C, D. This one is typical RES exam question. Let me read again. A, license. B, easement or passage. C, equitable extopper. D, air right. So now, tricky question. You got to use the process of elimination. Process of elimination. Okay, take out the most incorrect answer out first. Okay, why is it A? Let me explain. Now that, the question the answer can only be between license or easement. All right, but why is it license? Why can't I pick easement? Okay, let me explain license first. That means shop A allows owner or owners of shop house B to use the stairs. It is a personal arrangement. All right. So of course the question is unclear lah. So you don't expect you go to RES, wow, the question's so clear for you, and then the question kind of like answer the question itself. No way one. They will make you blur one. B, easement or passage refers to piping, cable, drain, sewerage, not stairs. Stairs is airspace. Stairs is something like footpath. Easement or passage refers to water, sewerage, electrical current. That one is called easement or passage, not walking. Walking is not easement or passage. Even though we may say passageway, but this passage and that passageway is different. C, equitable extopper refers to the situation where one party being unable to deny another party's right. For example, if I promise to give you the house when I die, and then after that, I never write a will. So, and other siblings want to come and compete over the right. So I say, no, I have this promise from so and so that when he dies, this house is mine. So, and of course, no other people can come and claim. So that's called equitable estoppel. Right? Air right. Example of air right will be using an overhead bridge. So sometimes you wonder, hey, how come I practice on some past year questions? Overhead bridge always came out in the MCQ. What is the significance? Because overhead bridge belongs to LTA. So LTA put the overhead bridge, all right, cut across the airspace of maybe a road or what. So when you're using it, you're actually using the airspace. Using the airspace. No need to go into that kind of detail because it's public right. So if not, basically just license. 4, owners of 2 adjacent houses agreed with each other not to subdivide their respective land in fee simple. This one is very common. This will happen 40, 50 years ago, or maybe even longer, 60, 70 years ago. Right. Now, if they enter into a deed and register with Land Titles Office, how long will the effect of the deed last? This one quite easy. If you read the course notes, you will know. A, 10 years, B, 20 years, C, 99 years, D, forever, because the land is in fee simple. So let me repeat. A is 10 years, B is 20 years, C is 99 years, D is forever. Okay. Okay, some of you are very good. Some of you are very good. If you are also watching the watch party, in fact, it's live stream. In fact, it's live stream. So, okay. All those answers on the Facebook live stream is correct. This one no need to explain because this is law. Such a deed once registered is valid for 20 years or until the change in the land law supersedes it. Because yes, you may register, then you may have the right over your neighbor, and suddenly maybe the government say no, this landed property area shall be rezoned with a plot ratio. Then of course then gone. This kind of promise then gone. Now, however, there are very few such deeds being registered in modern days, as the number of landed houses have been kept to a very, very low number. The last time I checked was for 74,000, including strata landed. So so the rate of increase is going to be very, very small. Okay, so if you're really very rich now, you got money to spare, go and buy a landed home, whether is it terrace house or semi-D, and the value will appreciate. Following the earlier questions, what is the promise on land known as? So let me now read the possible answers to you. A is incorporeal hereditament. B is restrictive covenant. C is injunction. D is negative easement. Now be careful. The question asks you, what is the promise on land known as? Okay, A, B, C, or D. Let me review the answer. So it's actually quite clear. Promise is known as covenant at the same time. Hereditament means a body of rights that can be inherited. So it's a tricky question. All answers have some relevance of truth, some elements of truth, but the straightforward answer is restrictive covenant, as a promise is also known as covenant. Now, in a broader sense, incorporeal hereditament can also be a correct answer, but it's too broad. It's too broad. I just mentioned that it is a body of rights and obligations attached to the land, and it can be transferred, right? Inherited by the next generation of owner. So, okay, your restrictive covenant also has the same characteristics. Injunction is the only equitable remedy to enforce the right of the beneficial land. Meaning, that's why I say have some element of truth. So when you have this kind of promise that, oh, okay, I promise you, I will not subdivide the land. But the moment I see that you have some movement in your house, and I will go and check. I will go and check. Because once you get the permission from URA to rebuild or subdivide your land, the approval is a public knowledge. I can go and buy. I can go and buy the approval. So usually I will get the lawyer to buy. So then I will find out that, hey, actually you try to breach your restrictive covenant. So this is a time where I go to the court to apply for an injunction, which is a stop work order to stop you from breaching your restrictive covenant. D can also be the correct answer, but the question asks about promise, not the right that arose as a result of the promise. Now, the promise creates a right. So if this is a cross covenant, that means I promise you on condition that you also promise me. So then the easement will become a cross easement. So I cannot, this is a negative easement, I cannot subdivide. You also cannot subdivide. So, but this concept is always very confusing. I give you a promise not to do something. So this promise creates the negative easement. Let's move on to question 6. The statutory fee that landowners need to pay the state for topping up of the state lease is known as A, development charge, B, development levy, C, differential premium, D, differential levy. A, B, C, or D. Earlier, there was a question on development charge. Okay, let me look at Facebook live stream. Okay, somebody picked C. All right, which is C. Right, I don't know. I think they are already practicing agents. So they are very good. Every question, they get it right. Let me explain. Differential premium. So this is straightforward. A straightforward answer. No need to explain that much. A, if you pick development charge, okay, so that one is for enhancement, betterment. Elsewhere is called the betterment tax. That means your property has been rezoned to a higher value. So then in order to enjoy the higher value, you got to pay the betterment tax to URA. So B and D are fake. There's no such thing. Let me go back to these slides. Let me explain B. Development levy. Now, if URA allow you to pay pro rate instead of pay for 99 year, you say, okay, I just want to pay the differential premium for 3 years, for example. It's called temporary development levy, TDL. Temporary development levy, prorated DP is called temporary development levy. Usually involves change of use. Okay, so now second last question, question 7. Tom, Dick, and Harry co-own a commercial property for investment. Dick died suddenly and Harry insisted on buying over his share of the property. A typical exam question, typical. Now, let me read out the 4 possible answers. A, Harry cannot do that as Dick's share must be passed to the next of kin. B, Tom must give his consent. C, both Tom and Harry are now co-owners due to the right of survivorship. D, Harry can buy over Dick's share from Dick's estate. So this is land right again, land right again. So how many concepts are being tested? The concept that has been tested is unnamed, was not mentioned in the question. So A, B, C, or D. Okay, one answer came in, say A. So let me review the answer. Okay, of course it's unfair because in order for Harry to buy over, all right, then his share must go to the estate first. The estate means the next of kin. Okay, D, let me explain. Harry can buy over the shares held by Dick's estate at open market value. He doesn't need to get Tom's consent to do that. The concept being tested are tenancy in common and succession. To be precise, no, we do not know, sorry. We do not know whether he has a will or he doesn't have a will. So therefore, the concept being tested is succession. So meaning if he has a will, that means his share will pass to his estate. Then the estate will be named. The beneficiary of the estate will be named. Then you just buy from the beneficiary. Now, what happens if it's intestate succession? Then somebody will come forward and say, I be the administrator. So then, of course, unless it's a spouse, then the spouse will get, if there are children, then there will be some distribution of the estate. So whatever it is, if you want to buy his share, you will have to buy from the estate. So this is why D is the correct answer. Because why? If you pick A, what happened? Dick has a will that say that when I die, my share of this commercial property shall go to my secret lover, my mistress that nobody knows. Okay, so then the estate is a different person and not the next of kin. So A, the shares will be passed to Dick's estate, but Harry can buy them from the estate. But we do not know who will be the estate, may not be the next of kin. Next of kin is usually your spouse. But what if I say, oh, because when I'm alive, I owe my sibling a lot of money. So if I suddenly pass away, so I want to repay my debt. So I may write a will to say that, okay, so if I really die, so then a certain amount of money, I want to return to my sibling, for example. So the next of kin will know, right? Okay. B, no need to seek Tom's consent, because tenancy in common, when you want to buy or sell shares, you no need to seek your partner's consent. C, it is inappropriate for joint tenancy to be conferred upon non-residential properties held by unrelated individuals. So when you're related, especially when you live in the same household, you got a lot of privileges. Like, for example, if 6 of you right now go out to a restaurant to eat, and then the safety ambassador, the safe distancing ambassador come and check on the 6 of you, and then you really come up with the IC and say that, oh, we are all members of the same household. Then take out IC, show address, all live together. Okay, then you got a special privilege. You will not be caught. But if you are, even you say related, but you're from different households, okay, you'll be fine. Yeah. All right. So as such, there's no question or right of survivorship for non-residential property. I mean, this is something very, very basic. Let's now tackle the last question. An US citizen intends to own a terrace house in a condo project. Must he apply for special approval from the Singapore government for that purpose? So now let me read to you A, B, C, D. A, such property is known as the restricted property and special approval is needed for a foreigner to own it. Yes, as long as the property is landed, be it strata landed or conventional landed, you need a special approval from the Singapore government. C says, no, a landed property within a condo project is not restricted to foreigners. D says, no, but Bernard can own only one such strata. Oh, sorry, I take out the Bernard's name. Okay, so that's why the foreigner can only own one such strata landed home in Singapore. So now, if in the exam you are confronted with this kind of questions, so now you have to make a decision. Is it yes or no? Is it yes or no? If let's say you say it's yes, then you don't look at C and D. If you say it's no, then you don't look at A and B. So now let's say it's yes first. Yes first. Now let's look at A and B. Then you will say, okay, it's a terrace house in a condo project known as restricted property. Now you have to decide on this one. And then is a terrace house in a condo project known as strata landed. So now you got to decide on these two points. Is a terrace house in a condo project known as strata landed? So this quite tricky already. Even if you are practicing agent, you may be blur also. Huh? So okay, then you have to know. You have to look at the title. Does the title say that it is a strata landed? Okay, so if you decided that it is no, then you have to look at C and D. C says that a landed property within a condo project is not restricted to foreigners, but must he still follow the formality and apply? D, all right, does it mean that he can only own such strata landed? Okay, now, so D and B is very closely linked. If they are known as strata landed, then it's a different rule altogether. So now, let me now show you the answer. The answer is no. A landed property within a condo project is not a restricted property, number one. But we haven't answered the part. Then is it considered strata landed? Let me see whether I have explained that. A strata landed house within a condo project is a condo unit. So it is not called a strata landed. The common property belongs to the management corporation. So as a result, he can buy. He can buy as many as he wants. Because why? It is a condo unit. It is not a strata landed. Because if it is a strata landed, then the Americans, being a foreigner, still needs special approval. If it is a strata landed, if it is mentioned as landed. A, restricted property does not include condos or apartment project. Even though the apartment project is lower than 5-story, this rule has been changed long time ago. Long time ago. Now you can buy any condo, any apartments, subject, for foreigners, subject to the all but one rule. What is the meaning of all but one? That means you can buy all minus one unit. Because if you buy the whole block, then the land you own. So the whole block you can buy, but one less unit, okay? All but one. Let's say the block got 83 units. Foreigner can only buy up to 82. You cannot buy 83. Because you buy 83, the whole block, the land is yours. So let's look at B. Condo is not within the definition of restricted property. So foreigners are allowed to own any unit subject to all but one. D, you will see already. As long as it is not a restricted property, there is no restrictions for foreigners to own many, except foreigners are not allowed to own the entire block of apartments. This is called the all but one rule. It come out in the exam once in a while. And for investors, I think also, good knowledge throughout this 1 hour. So, okay, next week onwards, I will be a new, it's 3rd October. It's not 3rd September, it's 3rd October. So next week onwards will be October. So the entire October, we'll talk about tenancies and leases. So let me do a bit of commercial. Now, if you have friends who are struggling with this RES exam, so ask them to come to my website. They can sample some of the MCQ. I think I got 30 of them. Go to RES exam preparation, the subdomain, and then you can see a lot of resources there, including some recording. So this e-revision, which is e-learning, e-revision bundle are going out at a very huge discount. So now you only need to pay $197. You can listen to all my lectures, altogether 10 lectures. There are 30 hours, worth 30 hours, and you have more than 1,000 MCQ to practice on. So, okay, now, this is end of the game show. I hope you have been blessed. So thank you very much for all of you who are taking part, especially those who are supporting me on Facebook Live. Thank you and see you next week.
Sam, sorry, I have questions.